Have you ever been bullied? Or worse yet, have you bullied someone else? I'm Laura Youngblood, and welcome to From Laura's Perspective, an entire library full of lectures you'll actually want to listen to. In case you didn't see my early video essay about systemic ableism in the autistic community, statistics show that 63% of all children with autism are bullied at school. But this is just one tiny sliver of the complicated issue of bullying. So today, we're going to scratch the surface of the issue by discussing what bullying is, the demographics involved on each side, how it affects those involved, and what can be done about it. But before we begin, I post a new video essay about a different facet of the complex world, culture, and society in which we live. And if you want more of that, I suggest you smash that subscribe button. Trust me, it'll benefit you way more than it benefits me. Now let's get started. Bullying behavior is done by one individual or group, the bully or bullies, to another individual or group, the victim or victims. The bully uses force, coercion, hurtful teasing, or threat as a means to physically or emotionally hurt, dominate, or intimidate the victim. What sets bullying apart from conflict is a perceived or actual imbalance of power, and that the behavior happens multiple times over a period of time. A bullying culture can develop in any institution where people regularly gather, whether it's a church, a home, a family, a prison, or a workplace. But this video essay is mostly about bullying in the context of how it occurs in educational institutes. Now that we know what bullying is, what does bullying usually look like in schools? Although every bullying situation is different, it generally takes one of the following forms. Types of bullying are generally categorized according to the nature of the abuse and number of people involved on each side. Individual bullying generally consists of one bully and one victim. In collective bullying, there are multiple bullies and/or multiple victims. The most notable form of collective bullying is mobbing, in which a group of bullies gang up on a victim through a campaign of rumor spreading, threats, intimidation, harassment, insults, and often physical violence. Both individual and collective bullying generally take the form of either physical abuse, verbal abuse, or the more modern cyberbullying. In physical bullying, the bully causes physical, bodily harm to their victim and/or the victim's property. Examples include stealing, shoving, hitting, and intentionally destroying the victim's property. Verbal bullying is much more common and is often the starting point that escalates into physical bullying. Verbal bullying is any bullying that does not involve physical contact, such as name-calling, rumor spreading, degrading jokes, threats, speaking in an unkind tone, mocking the victim, laughing at them, or the use of body language to hurt their feelings. Cyberbullying is the newest form of bullying there is, and hence its name, it denotes the use of technology, particularly social networking sites, to harass, threaten, stalk, embarrass, or target a victim. This form of bullying generally starts in middle school or high school when children begin to use social media. But where do physical, verbal, and cyberbullying all have their roots? Well, the answer is many things, so let's dive deeper. Although every bullying scenario is a little different, two things are true of all of them. First, there's an actual or perceived imbalance of power between the bully and the victim. And second, although it's unprovoked, it's never random. There's usually something specific about the victim for which the bully or bullies are targeting them. A major factor in most cases is popularity and social status at school. Bullying a kid who is on one of the lower rungs of the social ladder is often a means through which peer social structure is reinforced. Bullying behaviors often make an individual more noticed among their peers, often raising their position on the social ladder. Social hierarchies in schools often reflect those that are present among adults in the real world, and interactions between social status groups are similarly resembled. The example that resonates with me most is students being targeted by bullies for their disability or being in special education. As I mentioned in my early video essay, Systemic Ableism Against People with Autism, Part 2, I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3 and was often mocked, teased, and harassed by peers for my stimming behavior and difficulty with social skills, as adults on the spectrum often are by their colleagues. Students who are openly LGBTQ, or even merely perceived to be, are often harassed, teased, called names, and have rumors spread about them by their peers. Not that this makes it okay, but it's not really surprising that kids are taught that it is okay, given that religious and other institutions often preach that the mere existence of LGBTQ people is an abomination, an unnatural problem in need of solving. Students of higher socioeconomic status often target students from lower income families by excluding them, making derogatory comments about their parents' profession, or making fun of their relatively cheap possessions. Sexual harassment is a form of bullying in which boys make unwanted sexual advances, inappropriate comments about anatomy, and sometimes even go so far as to touch girls inappropriately without their consent, which stems heavily from the misogyny and objectification of women boys are taught, whether intentionally or not, from a young age. When a child is bullied, it affects every aspect of that child's identity, from their health, academics, to sense of self. The most obvious example of this is probably the cuts, bruises, and sometimes even broken bones that result from physical bullying. But moreover, the anxiety and trauma of this nature of bullying can aggravate pre-existing conditions such as asthma and eczema and cause more frequent illness, particularly stomach issues. Now let's talk about the social consequences of bullying. When a child has mean things said and done to them on a daily basis, this makes it harder for victims to make friends and maintain healthy relationships, and this is deeply rooted in the emotions of anger, bitterness, vulnerability, frustration, and loneliness that often result from bullying. Often, it's not just emotions, but an actual mental illness, such as depression, anxiety, or PTSD. This makes it harder for them to focus on their schoolwork, impacting their academic performance. That's not even to mention the tendency of bullied children to skip school in order to escape the abuse, which causes them to miss important information necessary to their success academically. In extreme cases, the emotional pain of the bullying can lead these kids to abuse drugs or alcohol as a numbing mechanism, or even attempt suicide. As dire as it is, let's not give up hope, because there are things that can be done about it. As the adults who are present and responsible for children when they are in school, teachers have a legal and moral obligation to intervene when they know bullying is taking place. Teachers and school administration ought to make the rules and policies about bullying very clear to students, which includes urging them to report any incident of bullying they know to the proper adult and make clear that this is not tattling. As soon as the teacher or administrator either sees the incident or has it reported to them, they should conduct a thorough investigation promptly. The student being bullied and the parents of both parties should also be involved in this investigation, as they have the right to know when their child is involved in a bullying situation on either side. That being said, since many children don't disclose that they're being bullied, either under threat from their bullies or some other reason, parents and teachers alike can intervene earlier by looking out for covert signs that a child is being bullied. These go way beyond visible injuries and ripped clothing. They also include increased resistance to going to school, or lack of interest in things they once enjoyed, crying, nightmares, decreased appetite, or on the opposite side of that, overeating. If you, as a parent, confirm this to be the case, report the incident to the school, even if you don't think anything will be done. From there, talk to your child about how to cope with their situation, and if you find it necessary, look into counseling, support groups, and other services for children in their situation. But simply investigating the incident and disciplining the bully isn't enough, as it doesn't address the many underlying issues and after effects. As I previously mentioned, children who are bullied often find themselves unable to make friends or maintain relationships. Therefore, the victim's parents and teacher should try to aid them in this to the extent that it is appropriate, which in some cases may involve referring the student to the school counselor or other forms of counseling and services that may help them heal from the emotional damage of the bullying. Of course, making and enforcing anti-bullying policies is important, but adults who work with children lead best by example in this regard. It's one thing for them to talk the talk about being kind and respecting one another, but it won't take any effect if they're not walking the walk. Just as an example, if you're a teacher and your students overhear you bad-mouthing your coworkers, they're probably going to imitate that with their peers. The only thing worse than being the parent of a child who is being bullied is being the parent of a child who is bullying someone else. You want to think your child would never do such a thing, but every bully is someone's child. Just like teachers do, parents also have an obligation to talk with their children about being kind and respectful towards their peers, and also to exemplify this in the home. Children who are exposed to physical and verbal aggression at home are likely to mimic this in the form of bullying at school, so this is something you need to make sure is not happening and provide a safe, loving home environment where kind words and gestures are used. If you learn that your child is engaging in bullying behavior, discipline them just like you would for any other offense, including a stern talking to about how their victim is affected by the way they treated them. In extreme cases, it may be necessary to seek out professional bully rehabilitation services. Thank you all so much for watching. Bullying is a complex, widespread issue that leaves everyone involved feeling anxious, depressed, overwhelmed, and affected for life. In fact, it's so widespread that it seems everyone I know has, at least once, played the role of either bully, victim, or bystander at school. Let me know in the comments down below what your experiences are with bullying, how it affects you today, and whether you think the situation was dealt with properly. Up on your screen are some video essays of mine on all kinds of social issues that pervade our society, but if you look even further, you can also find essays on the more fun stuff like music, movies, TV, and art. If you find it worthwhile, which you will, smash that subscribe button to join my ever-expanding video essay library.